Night fell like a sentence. The bell stopped first, then the dogs, then the breath of the street itself. You followed a hooded woman through a gate that swallowed sound. Her gown was cut deep at the front, linen dark against pale skin, daring in a world that punished daring. She walked as if fear were a rumor. Inside the dark ages, rumor killed slower than truth. Torches hissed. Mud sucked at your boots. Somewhere iron rang, and somewhere closer a man screamed once, then learned silence. The woman never turned. You noticed the curve of her throat, the promise and peril braided together. Desire rose because danger fed it. This was how nights began here, with beauty baiting survival. A guard watched from shadow, weighing coin against conscience. Plague breath drifted sweet with rot. You realized 24 hours was an ocean, and you had no boat. The woman paused beneath a saint carved blind by time. Her smile arrived late, sharp as winter. She whispered that dawn cost blood, and love cost more. If you stayed, she said, you would learn which price was cheaper. Tonight survival kissed temptation, and the kiss burned promises into your trembling bones. Morning did not forgive. Light exposed everything the night negotiated. Markets opened beside gallows, romance braided with rope. The woman returned wearing crimson, bodice daringly low, defiant silk stitched by sins. Men stared and prayed harder. She taught you rules without mercy. Wash wounds with wine, trust no smile, pay twice, flee once. Bells measured hours like verdicts. You learned hunger before breakfast and courage before noon. A priest warned of hell. She warned of streets. When plague carts rolled, she pressed close, breath warm, danger intimate. Desire sharpened your attention. Survival became courtship. She traded glances for bread, laughter for passage, secrets for shelter. Each exchange cost a piece of tomorrow. By afternoon, steel sang again. A duel over honor ended with mud and red. She pulled you through alleys smelling of piss and prayer. Her hand held yours, firm, guiding, claiming. Love here was tactical. At dusk she confessed a vow broken, a husband buried, a heart still beating. If you loved her, you might live. If you hesitated, you would die beautifully remembered by no one. Darkness gathered early, teaching you that affection was armor, and hesitation invited blades, whispers, and unmarked graves before dawn returned unforgivingly. Night returned heavier, perfumed by smoke and fear. She dressed in black, neckline plunging like a challenge to God. Candles carved shadows across her collarbones. You learned why beauty survived here. It commanded choices. A lord desired her, a guild despised you, a knife decided both. She kissed you once, brief, strategic, sealing courage. Then chaos. Doors crashed, accusations flew. You ran over roofs slick with rain and blood. She leapt first, trusting you to follow. In a cellar she bound your cut, fingers gentle, eyes ruthless. Love demanded speed. She revealed her plan to flee by river at dawn, bribing fate with silver and skin. You counted hours again, fewer now. Outside, boots hunted. Inside, hearts hammered. She asked for loyalty without promises. You agreed without certainty. When morning bled through cracks, you survived the 24th hour together. The dark ages loosened their grip slightly, not from mercy, but from respect earned by desire sharpened into resolve. You understood then why most failed. Fear isolates, but chosen intimacy multiplies strength, turning two fragile lives into a moving fortress against hunger, law, superstition, and the long knives of history. This lesson, learned in darkness, kept you breathing longer alive. By noon, the city shifted its face. Lords woke, laws tightened, and love learned new disguises. She led you into a hall where tapestries hid listening walls. Her dress today was modest above, scandalously open below the throat, a calculated contradiction. Men believed restraint made them safe. She let them believe. A steward counted coins while counting her breaths. You watched, powerless, as survival flirted without consent. When papers sealed, she leaned into you, whispering that protection was purchased with performance. Power tasted bitter. Outside, rumors spread faster than rats. Your name was attached to theft, her name to witchcraft. Together, you became convenient enemies. She taught you how to walk apart but think together. Touch vanished in public, returned in shadows, hotter for the delay. At sunset, a messenger warned of arrest warrants signed with wax and vengeance. You packed nothing sentimental. She burned letters, kissed ashes from her fingers, and chose you over memory. Love here meant abandoning evidence. As curfew rang, you slipped through a postern gate. The city watched, pretending blindness. You realized romance was no longer shelter, it was motive. And motives were hunted until they bled confessions into the stones. The road taught cruelty efficiently. Inns charged smiles, forests charged flesh. She wore a cloak loose at the front, daring eyes to follow and hands to hesitate. Desire misdirected danger. Wolves trailed you two kinds at once. By firelight she shared bread and plans, maps sketched on skin. She had lovers in every town, enemies in every guild, and faith in none. When riders appeared, she pushed you into brambles and stepped forward alone. Her voice softened, neckline opened, lies rehearsed. It worked. Afterwards she trembled, not from fear, but rage at needing the tactic. You held her without speeches. Intimacy replaced vows. Rain came hard, erasing tracks, baptizing choices. In a ruined chapel, she confessed wanting peace once, a garden, a child. The dream died quietly. Survival replaced it, and you were the witness. She kissed you longer now, hunger unhidden, as if tomorrow were optional. At dawn, smoke-marked villages burned for less than love. You kept walking. Every mile bound you tightly, not by hope, but by shared risk. Romance, sharpened by pursuit, became your only compass. At the river city, gates demanded truth disguised as tribute. She dressed for war disguised as devotion, bodice cut low, scars visible, honesty weaponized. Officials stared, judging value. You offered silence. Inside the walls, politics pressed closer. A noble recognized her. Old desire surfaced, oily and entitled. He offered passage for a night. She looked to you once, asking nothing. You answered by stepping back. Love chose sacrifice before being asked. She accepted the bargain with conditions, daylight, witnesses, distance. He agreed, already losing. By evening, the city buzzed. Papers changed hands. Boats prepared. When the noble reached for her, she slapped him, loud enough to summon guards. Accusations reversed. You presented evidence purchased with coin and patience. He fell. She stood. Freedom tasted like iron. That night, on a moored boat, she undressed without spectacle, letting trust do the work. Desire softened into relief. You crossed the river at dawn. Fugitives turned survivors. The dark ages did not end. They receded, step by step, conceding ground to two people who learned that romance, when ruthless and chosen daily, could outpace hunger, law, and the waiting dark. Obsession arrived quietly, wearing protection's face. Across the marshes, whispers followed you now, stories bending her beauty into currency, your loyalty into weakness. She noticed your silence first. Jealousy here was not childish. It was fatal miscalculation. One wrong assumption and someone died. In a tavern lit by animal fat, a mercenary touched her wrist too long. She did not pull away. She watched you instead. You learned then that love tested courage by proximity to loss. Outside, rain hammered choices flat. She confessed she needed admirers, needed doors open, needed options breathing. Exclusivity was luxury. You agreed, hating yourself for understanding. That night she returned late, perfume unfamiliar as honest. She chose you again, which mattered more than purity. Dawn brought blades. The mercenary waited by the bridge, insult sharpened. You fought poorly and won messily. Blood pooled. She cleaned your hands with her dress, neckline stained. Intimacy earned by consequence. Romance here demanded violence as literacy. As the body sank, she kissed you fiercely, claiming the risk you now carried. Love, you learned, was not trust alone. It was accountability written in scars, accepted without excuses, survived together. Cities ahead closed ranks. Your faces were known. Bounties aged well. She cut her hair, changed her name, kept her neckline bold. Fear still desired her. In a monastery town, bells rang false mercy. A healer recognized plague marks on travelers and ambition on you. Shelter cost confession. She told half-truths beautifully. You told none. At night she traced futures on your chest, choosing none aloud. Attachment deepened because escape narrowed. When soldiers searched rooms, she hid you beneath skirts and silence. Breath mingled. Danger eroticized restraint. Afterward she laughed, relief edged with hunger, and loved you harder for surviving still. Morning brought betrayal. The healer sold names. You fled through cloisters while monks prayed for order. At the river, arrows hissed. She pulled you into water, dress heavy, body strong. You surfaced beyond reach, gasping life. On shore, she shivered, cold and alive, eyes blazing resolve. She said she would not be caged again by men, gods, or tenderness. If you stayed, it would be as equal fugitives. You answered by offering your knife. Partnership sealed. Romance matured into pact. Winter leaned early. Food thinned. Tempers sharpened. In a border village, a woman accused her of witchcraft. Envy dressed as virtue. Crowds loved permission. Torches learned your names. She stood tall, bodice open, refusing fear's costume. You spoke calmly, listing witnesses, debts, favors owed. Politics answered romance. The crowd hesitated. A boy coughed blood. Plague again, always the final judge. Panic scattered certainty. That night she admitted exhaustion. Loving you meant never resting. You held her as snow fell, counting breaths like coins. At dawn she proposed separation. Temporary, strategic. Survival required distance. Love resisted. You agreed anyway. She kissed you long, memorizing. Weeks passed like amputations. You worked alone, bribed alone, bled alone. When you reunited at a mill, she was thinner, as harder, desire intact. She told you distance taught her the truth. She chose you not because danger forced it, but because peace bored her without you. You chose her because fear dulled when she was near. Together again, you crossed another line. The dark ages kept demanding payment. You kept paying together, richer in resolve, poorer in illusions, still alive. Spring brought war disguised as order. Armies marched to clean borders, meaning bodies would pile neatly. You were conscripted by name, she by reputation. A captain admired her openly, promising safety for obedience. She smiled, measuring exits. You were assigned night watch, expendable. Love became logistics. She stole maps, you stole hours. In a barn smelling of hay and fear, she undressed with urgency, neckline forgotten, skin marked by past winters. This was not indulgence. It was memory making. If one of you fell, the other needed proof life had touched them fully. Drums called dawn. She bribed a clerk, switched rosters, saved your name by damning another. Guilt followed like a shadow. Battle erupted. You fought beside boys who learned screaming fast. She moved through chaos like fire, uncatchable. When an arrow found your shoulder, she dragged you free. Teeth clenched, love furious. Night fell on fields baptized red. Victors sang. Survivors counted. She confessed the switch, eyes defiant, asking forgiveness without begging. You gave it because love here forgave to survive. The dark ages rewarded loyalty rarely. You learned not to wait for rewards. In the aftermath, order tightened its fist. Deserters were hunted. Lovers were liabilities. She was taken at dusk, seized by authority wearing law's smile. You followed tracks to a keep where confession replaced trial. Her gown lay folded, innocence staged. You bribed guards, promised future debts, offered blood. Inside, she stood chained, neckline torn, chin lifted. She did not cry. Power feared tears less than calm. The magistrate offered mercy for testimony against rebels you barely knew. She refused, choosing danger over usefulness. You planned badly and acted anyway. Fire distracted. Lock surrendered. Escape cut narrow. On the wall, she slipped, weight pulling fate. You caught her wrist, tendon screaming. She looked up, smiling like dawn, and told you to let go if it meant living. Love demanded the impossible, choosing one life over two. You hauled her up, collapsing together. Alarms chased you into forests. Free, but marked. That night she wept finally, grief leaking from courage. You held her until shaking stopped. Survival did not feel victorious. It felt expensive. Romance now carried a ledger. Every touch added risk. Every choice wrote interest. Still, you stayed. The Dark Ages noticed persistence. Exile sharpened intimacy. You moved between margins, trading labor for quiet. She learned herbs. You learned patience. Love slowed, deepened, stopped performing. At a lakeside hut, she wore simple linen, neckline modest by necessity, desire undiminished. Peace tempted you both. Then riders arrived with news. Amnesty for rebels, bounties doubled for her. Choice returned like a debt collector. She packed at once. You argued once. Love ended arguments early. She admitted she could not be ordinary. You admitted you could not be without her. Together meant hunted. Apart meant hollow. At the shore, she asked for a future that stayed dangerous. You answered by stepping into the boat. As oars dipped, arrows hissed late. The lake swallowed them. On the far bank, dawn waited thin and honest. You survived more than 24 hours now. You survived because romance here was not softness. It was alignment under pressure. The Dark Ages receded again, conceding another inch. But they waited, patient. Endings here were earned slowly. You rode on, knowing the final payment had not yet been named. The final test did not arrive as violence. It arrived as safety. A valley offered work, anonymity, a roof that did not leak fear. People smiled without calculating exits. Children slept without knives beneath pillows. She noticed first how quiet unsettled her. Peace exposed restlessness. Desire dulled without danger's edge. One night, she dressed finely again, neckline open, firelight reclaiming her old power. She asked whether you missed who she was when survival burned brighter. You answered honestly. You missed the certainty forged by threat, not the threat itself. She nodded, hearing goodbye in relief. In the morning, riders returned, not hunting, recruiting. A noble remembered her usefulness and offered pardon, land, influence. Alone, she could rise. With you, she would be limited. She did not ask permission. She asked truth. You gave it by packing her cloak. Love here meant releasing leverage. At the crossroads, she kissed you without haste, promising memory, not return. As she rode away, the Dark Ages reclaimed one of its own. You stayed, choosing breathing over burning. Survival, you learned, sometimes demanded letting romance become legend. The valley accepted you. The quiet healed. But at night, you measured scars like constellations, mapping a life that lasted because it did not insist on everything. Years taught patience the way war taught speed. You aged into usefulness. People trusted you with keys, not secrets. Then a rumor arrived, thin as smoke. A woman in crimson advising courts, untouchable, brilliant, dangerous. Desire stirred like a remembered language. When plague returned, she returned too, negotiating quarantines with the calm that commanded obedience. You met in a hall washed clean. She wore power plainly now, neckline unremarkable, confidence complete. Time had refined hunger into recognition. There was no embrace. There was gratitude. She thanked you for letting her go. You thanked her for teaching you how to stay alive without her. That night, you walked the riverbank, speaking of costs paid and lives spared. She admitted loneliness survived success. You admitted peace survived loss. At dawn, she offered partnership again, equal, deliberate, less reckless. You refused kindly, not from fear, but from knowledge. The Dark Ages had taught you your limit. Love could be fierce without possession. She left at noon, unchanged in stride. You watched until dust erased certainty. The world continued, indifferent. You did too. Survival did not mean winning. It meant choosing endings that did not kill you afterward. This is why most would not last 24 hours. They imagined danger as spectacle, romance as rescue. In the Dark Ages, love was not salvation. It was strategy, exposure, risk chosen daily. You survived because you learned to adapt desire to reality, to forgive without erasing consequence, to release without calling it weakness. You learned hunger humbles fantasies, disease ignores prayers, power bargains with bodies, and beauty endures by knowing when to leave. The first night tempted you with thrill. The last taught restraint. Romance did not save you. It sharpened you until survival fit. The dark ages never softened. You did. Not into fragility, but into discernment. When safety appeared, you accepted it without shame. When passion demanded everything, you measured the cost. History remembers heroes and villains. It forgets survivors. That is its cruelty. Yet you lived beyond the hour, beyond the myth, beyond the woman who made danger luminous. If you lasted here, it was not because you were fearless. It was because you learned when to fight, when to follow, and when to let love walk away carrying part of you into legend, while you carried breath into tomorrow.